Okay, I'm John Kraft with the Edgar County Watchdogs. We're going to talk about Seward, is that how you pronounce it? Seward Township in Kendall County. Kirk, you can introduce yourself.
I'm Kirk Allen, Edgar County Watchdogs.
My name is Sheila Trost. I'm a resident of Seward Township for over 30 years.
Michelle Salato, resident of Seward Township for over 45 years.
Okay, so we're here discussing election petition packets, in particular of basically the entire all the elected officials of Seward Township, except for the supervisor who's not running again.
That's correct.
So do one of either Sheila or Michelle, you want to talk about those, who they are, how long they've been in office, and then you can just segue right into when you believe the packets were submitted and if you believe they were, what happened to them after they were submitted.
Okay. I'm going to start by saying I'm going to give an estimate as to how many years each official has been on the board, because I do not have that information definitely. The current supervisor is Jean Homerding, who has not chosen to run. So we have not objected to anything, simply because she's not running again. The current clerk, is named, her name is Charlene Smith. She was appointed to fill a position that Mrs. Gegenheimer held for I don't know how many years. I'm going to say probably close to 8. She was appointed 2 years ago to fill that position. We have a board member by the name of Dan Roberts, who I do know has been on the board for over 25 years. We have another gentleman by the name of Jim Fleming, right? No, yes. Jim Fleming, who has been on the board for probably 20 plus years. We've had numerous board members over this last 4-year term. Tom Fleming. There have been replacements done for another board member. There's the current board member in place. Over this last 4-year term, there was one elected board member who withdrew. There was another appointed board member who lasted probably 6 to 8 months and withdrew. And then they made an appointment to the third just to fill this one position of a Tom O'Brien. So he's basically only been on the board now for about 3 months, maybe 4 at best. And then we have another longtime board member of Mr. Martin, Jim Martin. Okay, that's where my Jim came in, sorry. He's been on the board, I would say, for about 8 years, maybe 8 to 10 years, if that. And all of them are running again in April, the ones that I just named.
Okay, so in order to run again, they had to submit packets. When do you think they submitted their packets?
Well, we requested copies of all the independent candidate petitions that were filed, so we could, see who was running. And in the case of James Fleming, well, actually, do you want me to talk about the existing board members first or the other members?
Let's go with the existing ones first.
Okay, fine. In the case of Tom Fleming, who I mentioned has probably been a trustee for at least 20 years, his candidate filings were stamped and dated, which appears to be the date of December 22nd. And in his individual filings, that date, the 22nd date, has been scribbled out, and it has been changed to the 15th. So, okay,
The next one is
Yeah.
Jim Martin. The paperwork that we received from the clerk for Jim Martin had an original date stamped and written of 12/22/20, and then it looks to have been scratched and backdated to the 21st. And he is a trustee.
Okay. In the case of Timothy O'Brien, who is the trustee that is on the third replacement for this position, his candidate packet information, his candidate petition appears to have been stamped and signed by the clerk on the 22nd of December, and the date has been changed or altered to appear, to reflect, I should say, the 14th of December.
What's the first day you could turn those in?
The
The
14th.
14th.
The 14th? Any idea?
I'm sorry?
What's the last date?
The
The
21st.
21st.
Okay.
Any idea of those you've referenced so far, who changed those dates?
Well, in looking at the actual independent candidate petition that I'm looking at, it appears to have been the clerk, because she has initials by the dates that were filled out originally, and her initials still appear on the altered date. So it appears to be the initials of the clerk.
Okay, well, look back at James Martin. There's a handwritten document signed by the clerk dated
Yes,
12/20.
there is. Yeah, there's a handwritten document signed by the clerk. I think you're referring to, you want me to refer to James Martin again?
Mhm.
Yeah, because it says receipt for filing objections to documentation provided by Jim Martin with regard to candidate packet of documentation filed on 12/22/2020 with Seward Township clerk, and she signed it.
Correct, yes. I have that.
Okay. And that's in every packet, basically.
That's in every packet. That was the receipt for filing, that was signed by the clerk. Yes.
So she hand wrote a document and signed it saying that it was all filed on the 22nd.
Well, I'm going to indicate that she did not handwrite this document. No. When we, as a group, went in to pick up and file our objections, she was attempting to use a form and indicate and put Michelle Salato's name on every form. That was actually a form to be used if Michelle was filing her caucus paperwork. It was not the correct form. So when she began to fill out that form and use it for this purpose, I read the form and it didn't make any sense. It was totally the wrong form to not be used in this instance. So she got a little irritated and literally just threw paper at me and asked me to complete the form for what we were doing, or make up a form, because she didn't have one for what we were doing. So I
So this handwritten note, she says that Jim Martin turned in his documentation on the 22nd.
Yes, so we crafted the letter, left the blanks for the petitioner, the person that was doing the independent candidate paperwork, and the date. We made a form, left those blanks. Then for every person, we wrote the name of the person in and the date that she stamped on their paperwork, had her read the letter. Then, as you see, she signed it and dated it and stamped it.
She signed each document individually.
So you think the date change was after she signed that document?
No, I think the date change was, well, no, the dates were corresponding with the objection packages that we were filing. We corresponded, like in the case of Jim Martin's documents, it's very clear that his paperwork appears to have been stamped and signed as received by her on the 22nd, and then backdated to the 21st. So
Right.
that form is indicating that his documentation was stamped and received on the 22nd.
Okay.
Do you have that document in front of you? I'm trying to look through the ones we've got here. I'm trying to follow which document you're talking about.
It's a James Martin one.
I've got
Yeah.
James Martin, but which page of the many pages that are in that file?
The handwritten
It's this-
note would be on
The
page
at the very beginning.
6.
It
That's
should be-
basically signing of the objection on the 22nd.
Correct. So the
Okay.
No.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. I was reading the wrong thing.
Right.
That
So
was the
date-
receipt for filing the objections
Correct.
that you filed on the 22nd.
Correct. Well, part of this letter that we wrote, this receipt for filing objections, we put the person's name and the date that documentation was filed with her. So looking at Jim Martin, we said Jim Martin's paperwork was filed with her on 12/22 of 2020, which she read this letter, signed it, and dated it on the 29th, which was the day that we put in our petition.
Yeah. And she
Okay,
did.
so we were right. It's your receipt for the filing of the objection to documentation provided by Jim Martin with
Correct.
regard to his candidate packet of documentation filed on the 22nd.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
You
Yes.
didn't turn in your objection until the 29th.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, got it. That makes more sense.
Okay.
I'm not following here. As far as the petition papers for Martin, it looks like the 21st on the document, and then it's scribbled over and says the 22nd.
We
The
think it's actually
22nd
the
first.
22nd and scribbled to the 21st.
Yeah. Oh, we are thinking that it is the 22nd scribbled to the 21st because it's more consistent with all the rest of the documents that were dated. There are additional documents to his original filings, and you've got Jim Martin's packet there. Those are more there's other additional documents that were received. We feel that the 22nd date backdated to the 21st.
Yeah, and the statement of candidacy said 21st. Okay, I see what you mean. So,
Yeah, the
All right,
statement of candidacy did say the 21st.
Okay,
But
okay,
that,
so let's,
that's probably not the
it's not the clerk's date, it's the notary's date.
right.
Yeah, what do we have that shows the clerk and where she stamped it or accepted them on the 22nd?
that's directly above the dates that she enters. It's the state of Illinois Seward Township filed date on each one of the pages. That is a stamp that she uses that starts out by saying state of Illinois Seward Township filed. You'll see it.
Yeah, and then she handwrites the date.
Right.
Okay. Let's go on to another person so you can finish up
All right.
which people we're talking about.
The next one incumbent is Daniel M. Roberts. His date was written the 22nd, appears to be the 22nd, and was scratched off and restated as the 14th.
The next one would be Charlene Smith, who is the clerk. And her documentation, appears to be, the date appears to be originally written as December 22nd and then changed to the 14th. The 14th number is above. She just wrote it above the 22nd.
Yeah, I
What-
see.
What day did you ask for copies of all this?
You can't get copies until a certain date, so I asked for copies on the 22nd is when we requested copies. And we
So the
received them over a 2-day period. She gave us a portion of it on the 22nd and another portion of it on the 23rd.
Yeah, so with the clerk, you think she originally turned it in the 22nd, and then backdated it to the 14th. And if you look at her statement of economic interest, it's dated by the county clerk on the 17th, which is 3 days after she would have turned her packet in. 3 days after she said she turned her packet in, after the 22nd date was scratched out.
Correct.
Correct.
The next person is the Seward Township Highway Commissioner, Ann Vickery. 2 of her forms are dated correctly, or with no alterations, I should say, of 12/14/20. Then 2 of her forms were dated what appears to be 12/10 or 12/12, and then written over to change it to 12/14.
That one's a little bit difficult to read, but it appears to be either the 10th or the 12th was, and then written over to the 14th.
Yeah, it looks like the 10th.
I think it's a 10.
If it was the 10th, too early. You can't turn them in that early, can you?
No.
Correct.
None of the paperwork should have been turned in. The first day of turning in filings would have been the 14th.
Yes.
And which person was that for?
That was for Ann Vickery, the current Highway Road Commissioner of Seward Township.
Yes.
When's the first day for circulating petitions?
You can begin to circulate petitions, I believe, on September 27th.
Okay.
Get that pink form. There's a pink sheet that says right there.
Oh, September 22nd. I apologize.
Okay.
Then petitions can be filed with the township clerk between December 14th and December 21st.
And she filed hers on the 10th.
Correct.
It
With-
appears.
You believe she did with a corrected date to the 14th. Okay, who's the next person?
So that's
Well,
all of
Slow down a second. On this Vickery, which document is reflecting the 10th? Because the one I'm looking at is showing the 14th.
Page 3.
Correct. Page
Page 3.
3 and 4.
It would be, yeah, sheet number at the bottom. You'll see number 3 and 4.
I'm going to blow this up and get a better eyeball on it.
And it really couldn't have been the 10th because it wasn't sworn to until the 12th. No, that was November the 12th, so it could have been the 10th.
Did you blow this up on your big screen, John?
Yeah.
That's a 2.
That's a 2. We've just been looking at it through a magnifying glass.
Yes.
Well, John might be able to tell better on his giant screen. The 10th doesn't make any sense, but it's been altered, and that's the clerk's initials above it.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
It looks like a 1-0 to me that was changed to a 1-4.
Has anyone asked the clerk if she did this?
We have not. No.
Be an interesting question to ask if she did it, or ask her why she did it. See what kind of reaction you get out of her.
Well, that would come out in the electoral board and the court case, I believe.
Yes.
Well, it will if they're subpoenaed and put on the stand, but if you don't get that far, it'd be nice to see what she says in a face-to-face conversation.
I'm understanding that they all received their subpoenas yesterday.
They refused what?
I'm sorry?
They received, our understanding is that they received their subpoenas yesterday.
Yes.
Okay, good. And is that for a court case or is that for the electoral board?
That is for the electoral board hearing.
Okay.
And what day is that?
I've not been notified. Have you been?
Not yet.
No, I have not received notification of that. They are trying to, and I don't know what word to use here, but they are having to use attorneys to be on the electoral board because there are no eligible even the supervisor who is not running is not eligible because she signed other people's petitions. So she's not eligible to sit on this review board.
Did a judge appoint the new board, the new electoral board?
That is the step they're working on now.
Yes, that's
have the
Okay, yeah,
judge-
because the judge has to appoint them. Okay.
yes.
So that
Did we
was,
miss
that's
it?
record. Go ahead.
Did we miss anybody?
No,
yeah.
that's the records of all the incumbents, and
That's
then
a-
there are a few new runners.
Right. Those would just be the income, as Michelle said, but there are other candidates, yes, if you wanted to go through those,
And they all have the same problems?
Correct.
yes.
I don't think we need to run through all those if they're all similar. So
They are all similar.
They're all similar.
explain what you did. You filed a petition objection.
Yes, sir, we did.
Okay. And now you're waiting to get notified of when the hearings are.
That's correct, yes.
And there's rumors you're going to file a lawsuit. Is that true or not?
That has been discussed, yes.
I guess it depends on what happens at the petition objection hearings.
Correct.
Well, looking at the objections, I don't see a prayer for relief.
I don't know what you mean by that.
You have to have what's called a prayer for relief, which basically is you're asking the board to do something. What is it you're asking them to do?
Well, we basically have asked the board to provide, well, we made a statement actually, that the filings in the case of Mr. Fleming does not meet the requirements to be placed on the ballot. So
Right.
we were more making a statement.
Correct.
And we do understand that the method and the methods that we use for filing our objections are not sufficient. We understand that. But what we still, over and above that, we still feel that with the dates changed and altered and such, that there should be, something should be rectified in this. There should be an outcome to this.
Yeah, which is why I asked you if you're going to file a lawsuit, and I believe you indicated that it's a possibility.
Yeah, that is a possibility, because the way that the dates appear to have been altered does not meet what would be considered to be standard. It should not be handled. It should not be handled in that manner.
Right.
Are there any candidates that filed properly?
Michelle is the only candidate that filed all of her paperwork correctly. It has been stamped and signed correctly. She filed, what is the document to remove when there was a signature that needed to be removed. She filed the proper deletion documents. Michelle filed all of her paperwork 100% correctly. Yes.
All right. So if all these others were proven to be altered and removed from the ballot, there would only be one person on the ballot?
No, we ran for the first time in Seward Township on December 1st. We ran and hosted a Republican caucus.
Okay.
And during the caucus, there are several people that were slated. Scott Kreider was slated as road commissioner. Paul Schultes was slated as supervisor. I was slated that night as clerk. Joe Miller was slated as trustee. Laverne Spencer as trustee. And Doug Wilson as trustee.
All right. Was there a Democrat slate?
No, there was not.
So these are all independents?
Correct.
Well, no, that we
No,
are.
the rest of them. The rest of them.
Oh, the rest of them are all independents. Yes, we will be on the ballot as Republicans.
Okay. All right. Well,
As
Let
far as your lawsuit, I'm assuming you're referencing a mandamus type suit for the clerk not doing her job.
I'm not familiar with that terminology, so I would say yes. If it defines as her not doing her job, then I would have to say yes. But I'm not familiar with that term. I'm sorry.
It's not a problem.
Okay.
is there anything else you want to say or talk about? So everybody can hear you.
I've got a couple questions.
You have a what?
Couple questions.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't recall how many years you said, but it's been quite a while since anybody has ran for these seats. What decided to make you run?
I can say that, over the course of the 30 years I've lived in Seward Township, I have attended board meetings occasionally. I would say maybe 6, 8 board meetings, at least 6 meetings a year. I attended a budget meeting where the initial budget was being presented, and that was almost 2 years ago. And at that budget meeting, the budget was very poorly put together. There was no previous year's documentation as to expenditures, and there was a line item on the budget that was being presented that really threw up a whole bunch of flags, in my opinion. There was a $75,000 budgeted line item for an IMRF retirement fund. And I questioned the board, which you're allowed to do, and none of them would answer with regard to that. So the budget was being presented and should have been presented by the road commissioner at that time, but the road commissioner was not presenting the budget. The budget was being presented by his wife, Ann Vickery, who did not hold any position within the township. She was not his appointed assistant. She was merely his wife, and she was presenting this budget. So Ann said to me, she said, Sheila, if you have questions on this budget, I'll be happy to answer them. And I indicated that I was not comfortable asking her questions. I needed to be able to address my concerns with the road commissioner. Well, that in itself opened up an entire issue that it became obvious that the road commissioner at that time was not able to perform his duties. So Ann was basically stepping in and taking care of supposedly all the responsibilities that he needed to handle that he was not able to. Well, a month went by and I could not get my questions answered, and I went to the next board meeting and asked the board definitely, do we participate in an IMRF retirement fund? Have we participated in this in the past? And I was told no, that we were not participants. I did some homework in that last month and during that month time and realized you have to apply as a township to be a member of the IMRF retirement fund. That had never been done.
And that has to be approved by the electors.
Yes, it does. And it was never done. But yet there was a $75,000 line item for that expenditure for those funds to be dispersed. I was very concerned. I brought it to numerous residents' attention, and within 2 to 3 weeks, they actually amended a budget in a panic, to be truthful. But I felt at that time that if it really bothered me, because I thought if that's what's been going, there would have possibly be other instances.
Are you familiar with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, I am very familiar with the Freedom of Information Act.
I would encourage you to file a FOIA request with IMRF for all contributions made on behalf of Seward Township,
I will do that.
because you will find out real quick if you've been lied to. If they've been paying IMRF, they will give you all those numbers when you FOIA it.
That is an excellent suggestion. Thank you very much for that.
You bet.
Along with the compensation setting ordinance for the township officials for the last probably 12 years.
Well, that would be a FOIA to the township though, but do IMRF separately.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you. I was pretty much indicated by all the board members when I raised that red flag the next month when I attended that they were not participating in they wouldn't make a statement to that regard, but they just dropped their heads, dropped their eyes, and shook their heads no.
Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if you find out they've been participating.
That's a very good suggestion. Thank you very much.
How about you, Michelle? Why did you decide to run?
Well, I've been a resident of Seward Township all of my life, 47 years. Been on the Lisbon Seward Fire Department for 28 years. I've been a Lisbon Seward ambulance trustee for about 10 or 12 years. And so, I was looking at the next level of what can I get into to support and my community, right? To represent my township. So I had gone to my very first township meeting that I went to was such a horrible and atrocious mess of name calling and ignorance and yelling, and the entire board sat at their table. The supervisor did not she did not bang her gavel at one time. She did not request for order to be called to the room. She did not request anybody to be removed from the meeting, just sat there and let this belligerent ignorance continue. And that was the one and only meeting I had ever been to, like I said, and that was my decision right there to run.
And who were they attacking?
Sheila
Michelle?
was asking a question about her FOIA request and reading stuff about the road commissioner for the township and what their duties are. And it was so ugly. The words that were used were it was bad. It was very bad.
Here's an example of a small world. You mentioned the Lisbon Seward Fire Department.
I did.
Are you familiar with our lawsuit with them?
As an ambulance trustee, I am.
That was what's that?
I am at all the trustee meetings.
Well, what's interesting with that is, and I understand that trustee that was not responding my FOIA, he's not there anymore. Is that correct?
Well, he's still there as of now. There's been a replacement recommended for him, and we're just awaiting to see how that's going to play out.
Any idea why they didn't want to give us the records?
I don't know. I have no idea. I can give you my own thoughts off the record when we're done, but
No problem. Well, that case has been resolved. I think the last thing was a matter of cleaning up the attorney fees on it, but we finally did get all the records.
yes.
Yeah, that
Well,
was
sounds good.
That was a very ugly meeting. And to be truthful, Seward Township, when they host their meeting the second Tuesday of every month, they don't want an audience. They make you very uncomfortable when you attend meetings. And this has been I kind of did some investigative report, investigating on my own with FOIAs and what have you. And for the past 2 years, and it's been very ugly. As a matter of fact, I've been threatened many times. I currently have a valid order of protection in place for 2 years against the road commissioner's supervisor that is the road commissioner's son. He made several verbal attacks to me over a period of several months, and I had just had enough. And one night he actually threatened not only myself, but my home, my family, and my animals that we keep outside. So
Sounds like we need to attend your next meeting.
You're more than
you're
welcome.
more than we, yes, please.
We'll
That's a
send
long
you-
drive up there.
We'll bring you a mask.
Yes. We would welcome that.
Yeah, we'll set the tripod right there in front of them.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, we appreciate you talking to us. Good luck at the electoral board hearing. If that don't work out, good luck in the court.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to end the recording.